Okay, so get this. We've got some incredible stories for this deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's all about paranormal encounters, specifically from India.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I sent in uh, some amazing accounts from a guy named Sylvester, who actually calls himself a ghostbuster.
A Ghostbuster.
Yeah, a real-life ghostbuster. And let me tell you, his experiences, they're pretty spine-tingling.
I bet. You know what's really interesting to me is that we get to look at these stories through the lens of Indian culture, where the supernatural is like a deeply ingrained part of life.
It's true. It's like it's not just a spooky story. It's a window into a whole different worldview.
Exactly.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we should probably introduce Sylvester a bit more. He's been investigating the paranormal since he was a teenager.
Really?
Yeah, so you can imagine he's got some wild stories to tell.
I bet. It sounds like those early experiences really shaped his perspective.
For sure. Okay, so his first encounter, this one's a classic. Picture this. You're 16 years old, hanging out with your friend, near this old abandoned mansion that everyone says is haunted.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
And suddenly your friend disappears. What do you do?
Oh, I don't know. I'd probably freak out.
Well, Sylvester, being Sylvester, decides to investigate.
Wow. That's brave.
Yeah, and it's like he walks straight into a horror movie. Abandoned mansion, whispers of hauntings, a daring protagonist.
All the classic tropes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what makes this story so creepy is how he describes everything he experiences.
Like what?
He talks about moving shadows and this feeling of like the air being sucked out of the room,
Can't breathe.
right? And whispers like all around him. And then, get this, something grabs him.
What?
Yeah, an invisible force pulls him down. It's like the kind of detail that just gets under your skin.
I can see why he became a Ghostbuster after that. So what happened? Did he just get dragged away?
Well, luckily a village sage shows up, someone who knows all the old traditions. And he rescues Sylvester using these ancient mantras.
Wow. So they have ways of dealing with these things. Like it's not totally out of the ordinary for them.
It's like the supernatural is woven into their everyday lives. Okay, but this next story, this is where things get really intense. It all went down in Kultara.
Kultara.
Yeah. It's a deserted village in Rajasthan that's famous for being haunted. Sylvester told us even experienced paranormal investigators have disappeared there.
No kidding. It makes you wonder what it is about certain places that seem to attract that kind of activity. Is
Yeah.
it like leftover energy or some kind of geographic thing or something else entirely?
Well, there's this theory that some locations hold on to like an energetic imprint of past events,
Okay.
like an audio recording. But instead of sounds, it's
Yeah.
emotions, experiences, maybe even the essence of the people who were there.
Whoa.
It's called residual energy.
So it's like these places become a giant echo of the past.
That's creepy. It is, right. So Sylvester and his team head to Kultara, and right away things feel off. The temperature drops, their equipment starts malfunctioning, and then they see her, this woman in a red sari, just watching them.
The classic ghostly apparition.
Yeah, but it makes you wonder, is she a lingering spirit, a projection of their fear, or something else completely?
I don't know.
Well, one of Sylvester's team members gets a little too close to this figure and suddenly screams out in pain, like he's been burned or something.
Oh, no.
When they check on him, he's got these claw marks all over his arms.
It's like something actually attacked him.
Right, and on top of that, they managed to capture an EDP recording. Those recordings used to try to capture spirit voices.
Yeah, I've heard of those.
This one is especially eerie because you can hear a voice whispering, "Leave before I take you too."
That's terrifying.
You better believe they got out of there fast.
I wouldn't blame them.
Hmm.
So what does Sylvester make of all this? Does he think it was all just residual energy?
Well, this is where his perspective gets really interesting. He believes that some hauntings are caused by this residual energy, like a recording of the past, but he's also convinced that there are genuine supernatural entities out there.
Like actual conscious beings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Beings that exist beyond our understanding. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's the question that's been around forever, right? Is it all in our heads? Are we misinterpreting things, or is there really something more?
And Sylvester's seen things that can't really be explained rationally, which is what makes this whole thing so fascinating.
That's true, but also potentially dangerous if you're actually dealing with these entities, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where Sylvester's experience gets really valuable.
Totally. Like, he's not just telling ghost stories, he's giving us real advice from someone who's been there.
Right.
And his first piece of advice is probably the most important.
What's that?
Don't provoke the spirits. It's like a golden rule in all these paranormal stories. These entities, especially if they are conscious beings,
Right?
they often feed off our fear and energy.
Like poking a sleeping bear.
Yeah, exactly. You never know what's going to happen, so just leave them alone.
But do you think all spirits are dangerous? Or could there be a difference between those that are just like echoes of the past and those that are more malevolent?
That's a good question. Maybe some of them aren't even aware of us.
Yeah, like if they're just residual energy.
But if some of them are conscious, yeah, maybe some are more likely to be negative.
That makes sense.
And that actually leads right into Sylvester's next point.
Yeah.
Respecting these potentially haunted locations.
Okay.
They often have a history, a kind of energy we might not fully understand.
Right.
We should approach them with respect, even if we don't believe in ghosts ourselves.
Like they're sacred ground, almost.
I like that. It's a good way to put it. And finally, Sylvester really stresses seeking professional help if you need it.
Okay.
Because not every weird noise in your house means you're haunted.
True.
But if things are really unsettling, it's always best to be safe and talk to someone who knows what they're doing.
Someone like Sylvester who can actually come in and figure out what's going on.
Right. Someone with experience dealing with this stuff.
So we've heard some seriously creepy stories and gotten
Yeah.
some amazing insights from a real ghost hunter. But what does it all mean for U.S.? What can we actually take away from all this?
I think the biggest thing is being open-minded.
Okay.
Sylvester's approach is a mix of traditional beliefs and modern investigation. And it shows us that we still have so much to learn about the world around us.
He's not afraid to admit when something's unexplainable, but he also approaches it like a scientist. Always asking questions and looking for evidence.
Yeah, that's a good way to be. Curious, but careful.
Right.
Open to the possibilities, but not letting fear or superstition take over. It's about searching for answers while respecting the unknown.
It's like a balancing act almost
But-
between believing and being skeptical.
Exactly. And I think Sylvester embodies that perfectly.
He does. Okay, so we've explored Sylvester's crazy encounters, his unique perspective on the paranormal, and his advice for anyone who might experience something similar. But before we finish this deep dive, I would leave you with one last thought.
Okay.
Remember how Sylvester said not to provoke spirits and to be respectful of these haunted places? Well, let's say you were in his shoes. You're in this place that everyone says is haunted. Maybe you even hear something or see something move out of the corner of your eye. What would you do?
I mean, that's the real test, right?
Yeah.
Would you run away? Would you try to find out what it was? Or would you just freeze up?
Right.
It's easy to talk about it, but actually being there is a whole different thing.
It makes you think about what you really believe,
Yeah,
and how you'd react when things get intense.
totally.
Would you trust your gut or would you try to explain it away logically?
I think that's what's so cool about these topics. They push us to think differently, and they show us that there are things we just don't know.
Yeah, it's humbling in a way. And kind of exciting too. Maybe that's why we're all so drawn to these stories.
Yeah.
They tap into this primal fear of the unknown that's been with us forever.
It's true. And as long as there are things we can't explain, there will be people trying to figure them out.
Right. Some people embracing the mystery and
Yeah.
some trying to solve it.
Exactly.
I think Sylvester is definitely more of the embrace the mystery type. But he's still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to go into the unknown, but he also knows it's serious business.
He's got that balance.
Yeah. Curiosity, but also caution.
Right.
I think that's a good lesson for all of us. It's great to learn new things. But sometimes the most important lessons come from the people who have seen the dark side and come back to tell us about it.
Absolutely.
So next time you hear a weird noise in your house or you're in a place that gives you the creeps, remember Sylvester's story.
Yeah, think about it.
And maybe you'll have a better idea of what you're dealing with.
You might even find yourself being a little braver, a little more open to the mysteries out there.
That's a good point. Well, on that note, we'll leave you with this question. How would you react if you encountered something paranormal? Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and stay curious.